to the Thought Snob Podcast. I'm Paula Swope. Let's get snobby. Today's topic is about my recent journey with peptides, including Retatrutide, which is Eli Lilly's brainchild. Retatrutide has been all over the news because Eli Lilly just completed its phase 3 trial. Now I'll be talking about 3 peptides: Retatrutide, Tesamorelin, Ipamorelin, BPC 157 blend, and Sermorelin. I'm not going to do a long, drawn-out explanation of everything peptides are, because if you're watching this, you probably already have some idea. This episode is less Peptides 101 and more like, hey, here's what happened to me when I started them, what felt great and what felt absolutely terrible. So I'm only going to talk about the ones I've personally used, and it's the 3 I just mentioned. A blend of Tesamorelin, Ipamorelin, and BPC 157, Sermorelin, and Retatrutide, which has been all over the news because people are calling it the Godzilla of weight loss drugs. Now, before I go any further, I want to make this crystal clear. I am not a medical doctor. Nothing in this episode is medical advice. I'm sharing my experience, not telling you what to do. If you decide to take peptides, you must work with a qualified, licensed medical professional who understands them. A doctor is overseeing my labs, my dosing, and my entire protocol. Peptides are powerful. You can't underestimate them, and you can seriously mess yourself up if you freelance this with like TikTok advice and unregulated online vendors. There's a huge gray and black market for unapproved peptides right now, and many of them are not FDA approved or regulated, which means quality dosing and contamination are all big unknowns. All right, so I'll start with the blend, the Tesamorelin, Ipamorelin, BPC 157 blend. Around the end of October, I started taking this blend, okay? So, in case you don't know, Tesamorelin, it's a synthetic version of growth hormone releasing hormone, GHRH. Common side effects include nausea, joint pain, fluid retention, and changes in blood sugar. Ipamorelin, a ghrelin mimetic, meaning it acts on the same receptor as the hunger hormone. It's designed to trigger growth hormone release with fewer side effects than older peptides, but some people still experience things like headaches, nausea, water retention, joint pain, and increased appetite. BPC 157. This is a peptide often marketed online for gut healing and injury recovery. Most of the data is from animal studies and lab models. There is almost no high-quality human safety data. BPC 157 is considered experimental, but millions of people are taking it, including me. So in plain language, this blend is basically a growth hormone stimulating cocktail plus a healing peptide used off-label for things like body composition, recovery, skin, and sleep. It's not risk-free, and most of it is not FDA approved for what wellness clinics are using it for. My goals going into this peptide journey were pretty simple. I wanted to lose some weight, and I want you to know that I am not obese, but I once was. My peak weight was 204 pounds. I was in my early 20s. If you've read my book, Thought Snob, you know about that journey. I successfully lost the weight by the time I was in my mid-20s, and I've kept it off, but I tend to gain weight. I mean, keeping it off is a constant battle. I don't eat half of what I want to. No fast food, period. I can't even imagine eating fast food in this day and time. I stay away from processed foods. That's pretty tough to do. And trans fats as much as possible. Strict workouts. weekly sauna and cryotherapy and a metric shit ton of willpower. It gets tiring. It gets tiring. And this year we've traveled a lot, and it's just been one big party. And so I realized I'd put on about 10 pounds. Again, this was back in October. That's too much for me. I can't put on 10 pounds. Obesity did a real number on my body and my overall health and well-being. So I keep an eye on my physical size. So my goal for peptides was to lose about 15 pounds and take it from there. My next goal was actually my number one goal, and that was to get better quality sleep. And the quality of your sleep is directly connected to your appetite. So my doctor started me on 10 to 15 units of the blend at night before bed. I started with 10 units. I never went to 15. I started at 10 with the blend. And Monday through Friday with weekends off. So you got 5 days a week there. And I'm sharing that purely as my experience, not as a dose recommendation. My doctor told me that people often sleep deeply on this blend, but that there can be side effects. And he mentioned nausea as the main one he hears about from his patients. Now, I didn't research the blend myself before starting it. I didn't. And I know that was stupid, but I didn't. I tend to trust my doctors. Once I started digging later, I learned there are a lot of possible side effects with these peptides. Nausea, joint pain, GI upset, appetite changes, water retention, constipation, and more. And I had almost all of them. My first 2 weeks on the blend, not good. I started again at 10 units, like I said before. Night one, man, I was hopeful. I was so hopeful. I took the blend about 2 hours before I usually go to sleep. Instead of feeling relaxed, I felt amped up, like tired but wired. There was no going to sleep. I did not sleep 1 minute that night. It was horrible. So I messaged my doctor, and he was like, give it a few days. Most people even out, and if you don't, then, we'll take a look at what might be going on. So I did. I hung in there for a few days, and here's what happened. Constant nausea, joint pain, especially in my knees, and I noticed it in my hips too. And I'd have one night of great sleep followed by a night of no sleep, and my digestion just went freaking sideways, like these loud stomach noises, this weird GI stuff. I would be, in the bed and just put my hands over my stomach, go, what in the world is these loud noises? And then even on a good night, good sleep, on those nights I would get good sleep, I just felt foggy and off. The next day, I just did not like how I felt. And I felt hungrier, which made no sense, because I'd also started the Retatrutide, which decreases appetite. And I'll get to that in a minute. So this stage of the game, this first week, 2 weeks, I was on the blend at 10 units, and then I was on the Retatrutide at a very, very low dose. So I noticed water retention, especially in my belly. My stomach was huge. I felt like I was gaining weight and feeling like trash. Plus, I was still hungry. When I researched the blend, and I'm so thankful for all the people on YouTube that did what I'm doing right now and shared their experience with being on the blend, because it helped me so much. When I researched the blend, I learned that everything I was experiencing is very common with growth hormone-related peptides. Nausea, joint pain, fluid retention, appetite changes, and GI symptoms are all documented. So why did my appetite go up? Tesamorelin itself doesn't have a strong reputation for increasing appetite. Its side effects lean more toward nausea, fluid retention, and joint pain. Ipamorelin, however, acts on the same receptor as ghrelin, the hormone that stimulates hunger. I mentioned this just a bit ago. Ghrelin mimetics are literally used in research to increase appetite, and gastric motility and clinical write-ups on Ipamorelin list increased appetite or hunger as a possible side effect. So even though I was on a weight loss drug, the Retatrutide, that should, blunt appetite. That ghrelin-like action from Ipamorelin may have been pushing my hunger up at the same time. After about 2 weeks of feeling awful, I don't even think I made it 2 weeks. It was probably less than 2 weeks, but I tried moving my dose from nighttime to earlier in the day at like maybe 1 or 2 o'clock. I started taking the blend, and that helped a little, but I still didn't feel well overall. So my doctor and I decided to switch gears. This is when Sermorelin came into my life. It is my sleep game changer. We switched me to Sermorelin, and that's another peptide that mimics your body's own growth hormone releasing hormone. Instead of giving you growth hormone directly, it nudges your pituitary gland to release more of your own HGH in a more natural, pulsatile way. It's not currently an FDA-approved drug in the U.S., but it's available through compounding pharmacies and commonly used off-label for things like age-related low growth hormone recovery and sleep quality in adults. Some clinics and small studies suggest it may improve deep sleep and recovery by supporting growth hormone release at night. People describe Sermorelin as one of the gentler peptides, and in my experience, that's true. I took my first dose about 2 hours before sleep, and I slept so well, and that has been consistent. Once my sleep evened out, we got a little more creative. I started stacking my peptides. I started microdosing the blend with the Sermorelin. Now, even though I felt terrible on the higher dose of the blend, I couldn't ignore that there were some real benefits buried in there. My skin is prone to breakouts, especially in this area here on my face. And I had a horrible flare on my face when I started the blend. I'd been to the dermatologist, and I was taking minocycline and using this sulfur wash that just smelled awful, and nothing was really clearing it. It wasn't spreading, but it just wasn't clearing up. Within about 2 days on the blend, my skin started improving. Now, on the nights that I did sleep, the sleep was very deep. Through my research, I learned that some people stack peptides and microdose the harsher ones. Now, I didn't just go rogue with that. I asked my doctor first, and he confirmed that for me this approach was reasonable and safe. So here's what I do now. And again, this is my protocol. It's not a recommendation. Sermorelin, 16 units at night, 5 days per week. And then the blend, 4 units in the morning on an empty stomach, 5 days per week. At this microdose, I have had 0 side effects from the blend, but I still feel like I'm getting the advantage from the blend. My sleep is excellent, my skin looks better, and I feel like my nervous system is calmer because I'm actually resting and getting good quality sleep. Now, let's talk about Retatrutide, or Reta, as people casually call it. Retatrutide is an experimental weight loss drug from Eli Lilly. It's a triple receptor agonist. It hits GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon receptors. If you've heard of Ozempic or Wegovy, those are GLP-1 only, or Mounjaro and Zepbound, those are GLP-1 plus GIP. Retatrutide is like the next generation version that adds glucagon into the mix to potentially burn more energy and drive even more weight loss. Now here's the important part. Retatrutide is not FDA approved. It just went through phase 3 of its clinical trials, which means it will probably be FDA approved sometime in 2026. I'm under the care of a doctor and using a medically supervised source, and I cannot stress enough, do not buy this stuff off Telegram or TikTok or some sketchy website. Common side effects of retatrutide in the trials include GI issues, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, and a small increase in heart rate. Most of these are dose related and happen more during dose escalation. Now, here's how I approached Reta. Because I respect the power of this drug, I started it very conservatively. My doctor suggested that I start with 7.5 units, but I was nervous, so I started with 5 units once a week and stayed there for about 6 weeks. I had no side effects from the Reta, no nausea, no vomiting, no drama. Now, what I did notice, I stopped eating, once I felt full. I felt full longer. Nighttime snacking decreased. I still wanted food, but I naturally ate smaller portions. Now, after about 6 weeks, I nudged it up to around 7 units, and I stayed there for a couple of weeks, still no side effects. Then I increased to 10 units, and that's when my appetite really dropped. So I inject my weekly dose on Sunday mornings on an empty stomach. And when I was at a lower dose, I did experiment once with a little top-up midweek. I did 2 extra units. I think it was on a Wednesday, and that worked fine for me. But again, this was under medical supervision, not me playing chemist. So like most GLP-1 type drugs, I can feel it begin to wear off. My appetite usually starts to return on Friday evening or Saturday, but it's not raging, and I attribute that to this high quality sleep that I've been getting. Now, in the studies, the phase 3 clinical trial studies that are all over the news right now, that were conducted by Eli Lilly, Reta's been in the news everywhere for the past 48 hours. Some of the participants in this study said that they had to stop taking the Reta because it was so strong. It was too strong. They were losing weight too fast. I don't know what dosage those people were on, but I have not once had that problem. Just so you know, this is very gentle. I have just not felt anything like that from the Reta at all, okay? Now, you've probably heard horror stories about GLP-1 drugs like the Wegovy, Ozempic, or Mounjaro, people puking if they overeat or eat greasy food or, drink heavily. This can absolutely happen, especially at higher doses or if you eat in a way your body no longer tolerates. I don't eat greasy food, and I drink moderately, 1 to 2 drinks in a setting. I also eat slowly and stop when I'm full. So I've had like 0 GI issues with the Reta so far. Now, I fully believe that if I sat down and crushed an entire pizza and drank 10 martinis, I'd pay for it. But I'd be sick without retatrutide. My guess is it would be worse with it. So I don't play that game. I have a healthy respect for this medication, and I'm allowing it to train me. That's really what it does. It trains you. So a couple little things. The constipation thing, it can be a problem. One thing you need to know with these appetite suppressing drugs, when you're eating less, your gut slows down. So constipation is common. My doctor recommended a fiber supplement like Citrusel, and I took that to keep things moving. That lines up with what dietitians and clinicians are recommending with GLP-1 type meds. More fiber, more water, smaller meals. I also rub a few drops of Jamaican black castor oil on my belly. I do that at night sometimes, but again, talk to your doctor before you do that, okay? So, want to just get into real quick age, weight loss, speed, and muscle. I'm 48 years old, postmenopausal, and I don't have a huge amount of weight to lose. Originally, like I said before, my goal was about 15 pounds. I haven't weighed myself, but based on how my clothes fit, I'd estimate I've lost around 5 pounds, probably a little more. This is, real weight, and it's been slow, steady, and intentional. That's how Retta should work. Weight loss needs to be sustainable, no crash diets. If you see some type of ad or something and somebody's saying, hey, I started Retatrutide and I lost 50 pounds in a month, that's not normal. That's not healthy. No. At my age, I'm not interested in shock dropping weight and ending up with, this saggy skin and, no muscle. And, here's what the research is saying. With GLP-1 based drugs, Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, and likely Retatrutide, 20 to 40% of the weight loss can come from lean mass, not just fat. That's not unique to these drugs. Any major weight loss, surgery, crash dieting, whatever, tends to take some muscle with it. But because these medications can cause big losses, preserving muscle becomes even more important. So I'm taking the slow route on purpose. My belly is less bloated. My jeans fit better. And jeans are more honest than the scale. Jeans, they don't lie. And I feel like the changes are sustainable. If you start to take Retta, protein, that is a big deal. I don't eat poorly to begin with. I eat a lot of salmon and other fish. I don't eat red meat or chicken, so fish is a big source of my protein. When you're on a medication that blunts your appetite, it's very easy to accidentally undereat protein and nutrients because you just, hey, you don't feel like eating, or you're eating, smaller portions. But the research is really clear. GLP-1 type meds can cause loss of both fat and muscle. Higher protein intake plus resistance training helps protect muscle and bone during weight loss. I aim for at least 80 grams of protein daily, but please ask your doctor, what's right for you. And, I spread protein across meals, not just one big hit. And you can use protein shakes or snacks if your appetite is low. But getting your protein from real food, like, lean meats, is absolutely best. But I'll stop with this because I'm not here to lecture anyone about their diet. I'm here to share information that might help you improve the overall quality of your life. And that's what the Thought Snob podcast is all about. And there's no easy fix. Like, there just isn't. There's no miracle cure or drug for obesity. I mean, obesity is a disease, and you should treat these peptides as you would medication. And they don't do all the work for you. They just make the journey a little easier, a lot easier, actually. I mean, that's been my experience. Starting peptides is one of the wisest decisions that I've made. So this is where I am now. I'm about 2 months. I get about 2 months into my peptide journey. I've learned a lot, and my sleep is dramatically better. My skin looks clearer and healthier. My belly is flatter and less bloated. My clothes are fitting better. My mood feels calmer, more patient, and less reactive. And I credit a lot of that to quality sleep. I'm in a better mood, and I have more energy. I'm losing weight slowly, which is exactly what I want at 48 years old. Now, I know I still have a lot to learn, and things may change as more research comes out, especially around long-term safety of these newer peptides and triple-agonist. For now, I'm monitoring closely, staying honest with myself and my doctor, and moving slowly and respectfully with these medications. And I'll keep giving you updates as I go. and I'll answer your questions and comments as best I can, always through the lens of this is my experience, not a prescription. You deserve medical care that is tailored to you. So thank you for being here with me again. If you enjoy the Thought Snob podcast, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might benefit. And I will see you next week.
The Thought Snob podcast with Paula Swope has been brought to you by Thought Snob Media in association with Special Purpose Studios. All production, mixing, and sound engineering by me, Will Swope. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Please take a few seconds to give us 5 stars and leave a review. See you on the next Thought Snob podcast with Paula Swope.